Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City of Independence Budget Committee. This is John McCardle, and I'm wearing a mask because that's what I hope people will do in public. But since I'm here at City Hall, and there's only City Recorder Karen Johnson and City Manager Tom Pessimir and I in the council chambers, we have lots of personal space between us. So we are doing the correct thing. I want to welcome everybody to our first ever Zoom Budget Committee meeting in the history of our city. What I'm going to ask our city recorder to do is, since this is being live streamed on YouTube, and folks could be listening in, but they may not have video. So what I'm going to ask is for Karen to actually do a roll call so that you can answer. And when you answer, if you would give us a one-liner or a 1.5, maybe a 2-liner of who you are, where you work, or if there's something we need to know about that. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll make a couple of other preparatory comments as we move into the agenda. Karen?
Mayor McCardle.
Hi, I'm John McCardle. I work at my day job. I'm the Community and Government Relations Director at Lynn Benton Community College.
Councillor Takis?
Yeah, I'm Tom Takis, work at Home Depot Distribution Center, and I'm also City Councilor.
Councillor Hicks?
Hi, I'm Michael Hicks, and I'm a city councilor, and I also work at the Health Authority.
Councillor Morton?
Good evening. My name is Marilyn Morton. I am the current president of the council, and I work for MyNet.
Councillor Martin Willis?
I am a city councilor, and just a reminder, today was the last day to mail your ballots, so please use the drop box at City Hall.
Councillor Ranstrom Smith?
I am a city councilor and I work for the Oregon legislature.
And Councillor Kaur?
Hi, I'm Shannon Kaur and I work for the Oregon Health Authority.
And our citizen members of the committee, Miranda Garrison?
I'm Miranda Garrison, and I own Arena Sports Bar and live in Independence.
Jessica Madronal?
Hello, I'm a GED teacher at CSC, and I guess the exciting news is that 4 days ago I got married.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you. And I'm on the budget committee as a community member.
And I'm sorry in advance, Bill Boisvert?
Bill, you're muted. Unmute your...
Sorry about that. My name is Bill Boisvert, and I am with EXP Realty, and I am on the budget committee.
Erin Seiler?
Hi, I'm Erin Seiler. I am the Senior Policy Advisor to Labor Commissioner Val Hoyle.
Nancy Lodge?
Unmute yourself, Nancy. Yes, we can hear you now.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, because a message on the screen says I got unmuted. Okay, I'm Nancy Lodge. I'm a former city councilor and now a citizen of Independence.
And Dory Scholl.
Hi, I'm Dory. I am a housekeeper and I am a citizen member of Budget Committee.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for being here today. We really appreciate it. Let me kind of go over on page 3, section 1.1 is our agenda for the evening. And after conversation with our city manager, we'll move through the agenda. And then after the budget message by Mr. Pessimir, then he is suggesting that we adjourn at that point so that everybody can actually read the material, because I know if you're like me, I got it very briefly, and we want to give everybody the time to digest both the budget message and the material, and then we'll be ready for a public hearing and conversation and questions at our next meeting. There won't be any public hearing scheduled for tonight, so that everybody gets a chance to read and understand. Does that sound like a reasonable approach to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, if that's okay, The first thing on the agenda for this evening is an election of a chair of the budget committee. And that person makes sure that things happen, and then I get to be quiet. I saw all the smiles there. And Miranda Garrison was our budget chair last year. Is there
I move to retain Miranda Garrison as our chair for this year.
I'll second that.
Second.
There's multiple seconds. Miranda, will you serve?
I will serve.
Okay, so all you have to, okay, all in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? Miranda, you are the budget chair. And so I'm going to let you, I'm going to suggest that you go on to the review of the agenda and budget calendar with Mr. Pessimir and Gloria. And you've got the rest of the meeting. Just follow along, and I think it'll be just fine. I'll be quiet from here on.
Okay. So I am going to have a quick question. Do we need to approve the minutes from last year?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the first action item then, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the last year's minutes as in the booklet.
In a second?
Second.
All right, can I have a vote on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to get this small on the side. Okay, so then the next thing is will approval minutes, suggest motion.
You're going to go.
So we're going to go to the budget overview. So that'll be on to the city manager, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready to present the budget overview?
So I'm going to start.
Okay.
We're going to go out of order here a little bit. We had a kind of a slightly different plan.
Oh, okay.
I'm Gloria Butch. I'm finance director, and I would like to quickly introduce our management team that is listening in, and they will be available if you all have questions at any time. But we have Bob Mason, our police chief. He is available. And we have Kai Cottom. He is our public works director. There is Amanda Asham, or Christensen now. She is our HR manager. Jason Kistler is our IT manager. And of course, there's our city manager, of course, Tom Pessimir. And I feel like I have forgotten somebody. Tom,
Who's
did
going
I
to handle the library questions, Gloria?
Pardon me? Go ahead, Counselor.
No, I don't have a question. I'm just asking for future reference, since we haven't hired a new manager yet.
The new manager, what?
New library manager, so.
Oh, no, we have not. That's still in the process. I believe we're close. And we're just waiting for a acceptance, I believe.
Yes, we actually got it late this afternoon, so we're excited to have someone who's ready to move in. It's going to take them a little while to get here, but we're excited to have someone.
So I realized who I forgot. Our Economic Development Director, Sean Irvine, is with us also. And he's kind of one of our important people too. And so it takes the whole team to develop the budget. And I just want to thank everybody, and including, don't want to leave out our city recorder, Karen Johnson. This budget is laid out so it's more friendly for you as a digital format. We've done it in sections. there's, as in the past, we'd had tabs and renumbered according to the tabs. So this time we are in sections. Each section is page numbered. We will be referring to those page numbers whenever we are trying to go to identify a specific item in the budget. So we've already gone through most of the budget process. We did the election of the chair and the approval of the minutes. I want to make sure that everybody has received the budget calendar. Want to highlight that next Wednesday, is our second budget committee meeting, and it also will be at 6:30. We have scheduled the following Wednesday, which is the 27th, if needed. So it's open. From there, I'm going to turn it over to Tom.
Thanks, Gloria. So really, Gloria and I are going to kind of tag team this portion of the meeting just so that we can give you the best information. As you can tell, most of you have been through this process before. We have a couple of new people. I think Jessica and Aaron are both new to this process. So at any point, raise your hand or something and stop us and ask questions if we're moving too quickly. But essentially, we've kind of done a number of Zoom calls. We've done a number of council meetings online. And what we found, I think, is just need to slow down a little bit and let people have the opportunity to catch up. When we're all in a room and we can all be flipping same pages and your neighbor can be helping you to get to the right page, things can go quicker. But I think we recognize that we don't want to leave anybody behind, and we certainly want to make sure that everybody feels very comfortable at the end of the day when they make their vote, that they have a clear understanding of what's in the budget, what's been presented. So with that said, what we've kind of decided to do, and the mayor talked about it earlier, is get to the point on the agenda right before the capital improvement plan, and then just kind of pause there so that you guys can take the next week and really go through the budget and make sure that you've had a chance to look at everything. But at the same time, we also wanted to make sure that we gave you kind of a high-level overview of the budget and where we're at, and just to make sure that you have at least kind of our thinking as we put this together, because obviously we have some challenging times. Things are different than they have been in the past, and we have tried our best to deal with that. There are a lot of unknowns out there at this point in time. So I think one of the things that Gloria and I have really worked hard on is to make sure that we are flexible and we can react as the year goes along in order to make the appropriate changes to deal with whatever might come next. So I'm going to talk just a little bit from an operational standpoint. I don't want to get into all the things the cities have done for businesses and for other things, but I do think it is important that I kind of go over some of the operational changes that we have gone through here for the COVID-19, because that really impacts things that are going on in the budget, and it'll impact things, in the future. But really, we've had what I would say are three operational plan changes that we have done or are currently working on. The first was, really closing down a lot of our facilities, trying to figure out how we could still maintain the functions that we do without having direct access to the public in our facilities, in order to protect the public and staff. That was, as everybody else is aware of, came upon us all very quickly and caused us to do a lot of operational changes. Very shortly thereafter, we moved to teleworking for a lot of our employees, as well as going to shift working for the employees that could not telework. So our plan, as the governor recommended, was to spread the time out and spread people out as much as we possibly could. I think I can say, doing those two things, we've really still been able to do a lot of things, and we've had a lot added to our plates. But at the same time, we've still been getting a lot of work done and still moving forward. We have had very few downtimes with employees. Employees have still been very active and really being able to do their work. I'll say that this budget committee and actually previous budget committees invested in giving us good tools, especially Office 365 and some other telecommuting tools that we really hadn't used fully to their advantage, although we are now. And that made a huge difference for us to actually be able to turn our operations and let people continue to get their work done from home. The third kind of operational, efforts are kind of coming up as we look at kind of reopening Oregon. Obviously, we're looking at reopening our offices and things as well. We're going to take a measured approach to that and try to preserve capacity for others, especially small businesses who have been really somewhat devastated by what's going on. So we're gonna reopen slowly. We're gonna make sure that we're watching the curve and as Oregon reopens in general. But we are working on plans to move that forward, and we'll adjust from there as necessary. So, I think as we put this budget together, and Gloria and I and all of your senior staff here at the city really have worked hard on trying to figure out how to best respect, the needs of the community and also where our community is at. And, I said it before, but I don't think I could say it enough is, our small businesses have really been hammered by this crisis, and many of them are closed. Many of them are looking to reopen, but it's going to be hard for them, and it's going to be slow. And honestly, we're going to lose some businesses and some businesses that we care about. And so we recognize that as a city, and we recognize what we can do. Council passed, and you'll see this in the budget. Resolution to move some of our economic development loan funds into a program to help small businesses, and that will continue on into next fiscal year, and we'll get to that when we go through the budget. We also recognize that many of our residents have lost their jobs, that there has been severe impacts to people in our community. The unemployment rate went from almost historic lows to almost historic highs in a very, very short period of time. And so really, we are fully aware of that. We're fully aware of everything, or a lot of things that are going on, and we're still trying to figure out where things are going on. But what that all leads to, and the reason I'm going into it, is because when we put this together, we recognize that we're in a recession. I mean, the reality is we went from very healthy economic growth to a period of recession. I think the only thing that we don't know is how long that recession is going to go on and how deep it's going to be. So when we put this budget together, we were really looking at flexibility and thinking through those things. We are making some changes, which you'll see here, and Gloria will kind of detail when she reads the budget message here to accommodate that. And then I'm going to follow up at the end of that with kind of what I think is the other important piece of that, and that's not necessarily what's just in the budget, but actually how we operate the budget as the fiscal year goes on, because that's just as important as, or more important, especially in these conditions, that we make sure that we're making good decisions, not just when we adopt the budget, but throughout the entire year as we move forward. So I'll kind of detail that. So really what we're trying to do here is just kind of give you some idea of the thinking as we put this together. I think if we had another month, we could probably have a better crystal ball, but certainly we've done what we can with what we knew at the time. So with that said, I'll turn it back to Gloria, and she can talk about the budget message, and then we'll follow up with a few more things. So Gloria.
Thank you. I'm going to read the budget message, and then I will follow up with some other assumptions that we used in the budget. It is my pleasure to present the proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 budget for your review and approval. The budget is balanced and represents efforts by staff to keep quality services with limited resources. This budget is similar to last year's budget in many respects and also very different from last year as we adjust for the COVID-19 pandemic and the effects it has had on revenue forecasts. With expected decreases in certain revenues from the state and the streamlining of processes in the finance department, in addition to what is predicted to be a decrease in new construction activity, the budget includes a realignment of staffing, primarily between finance, community development, and public works. This adjustment will merge 2 positions into one. We are proposing the elimination of 1 shared position in the finance, building, and community development departments, and reclassifying 1 public works position. Cost of living adjustment, or COLA, are set in the collective bargaining agreements. Those adjustments are in the proposed budget. COLAs for non-represented employees have been eliminated for the first half of the fiscal year. We propose a reevaluation of the revenue and expenditures late in the calendar year 2020 to determine if COLAs for the second half of the fiscal year are warranted. Leaving those in the contingency budget allows for flexibility depending on the conditions at that time. As noted in our last budget message, increases in labor costs also is an issue for every community that participates in the PERS. The city began saving funds in a PERS stabilization account a few years ago. Once again, this proposed budget does not dip into that account, as we recognize there will be 1 more round of increases in the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. If we continue to save at the current rate, the city will be able to cover a large portion of that future increase. The budget is the roadmap to where we are going this coming year in support of the overall vision and mission. The drafting of the budget for 2020-2021 began much like it has over the past few years, with optimism in regard to growth, both in new construction and economic development. The onset of the COVID-19 pandemic and the rapid dive into recession required staff to reanalyze the effects, both in the short term and over the next year. Staff has received significant guidance from the state on revenue expectations, and that guidance has been included in this budget document. The general fund is the largest and most active fund. The total amounts are summarized below. The proposed amounts are very similar to the previous fiscal year. I'll let you review those when you have the budget to review, if you have it already.
Yeah. So Gloria, can I pause you for just a second?
Yes.
So I want to make sure that everybody knows that Gloria's reading the budget message. It's in section 2. So if you have a hard copy of the budget or a digital copy of the budget, this budget message is in section 2, pages 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and all the way through 2.5. So if you didn't get a hard copy, we have a hard copy for you here at City Hall, and you can coordinate with Gloria to make sure you get one. Or if you're following it online, I just wanted to make sure that you all knew where she was looking, so you can see that table at your convenience. And if you want to read along, you can.
Thank you for pointing that out. I meant to say that at the beginning. Moving along, the general fund is in balance, and financial planning continues to make sure revenues continue to match expenses. Our economic outlook and assumptions, the city has seen strong growth over the past couple of years. However, that is expected to slow into the coming fiscal year. The hotel was completed and opened in late summer 2019, and transient lodging tax revenue began coming to the city until it dropped significantly in March due to the COVID-19. The budget had anticipated hotel business to start increasing with spring break and the onset of summer activity. Osprey Point in phase 2 of Independence Landing which has 110 apartments and 14 townhomes. Construction is still in full swing. There remains a couple of development projects that are currently under review and/or pulling permits for construction. The new developers of Old City Hall are finalizing construction plans. Independence Station is moving forward with preliminary planning, but revenue from this project is not anticipated in this budget. The city will complete a transportation system plan update with CIT and ODOT grant funding to inform the city on how to deal with existing and upcoming transportation issues and identify gaps in pedestrian and bicycle systems. This plan will help to inform the city on potential changes to systems development charges and funds necessary to support the existing streets and sidewalks in the city. The city completed a Vision 2040 plan in March. The plan will continue the history of providing community guidance on how to move Independence forward. Implementation of the plan and council goal setting had to be postponed as staff was redirected to respond to the COVID-19 crisis. This process will be completed during this next fiscal year. Work will continue to assist our businesses in recovery following the pandemic. The city has set aside funding for small loans to businesses to operate in independence. Residential development and housing starts promise to continue, but possibly at a slightly declining rate. We conservatively have used 45 new single-family resident units for budget purposes. With our steady march towards the inevitable 10,000 plus population point in the coming few years, the city's budget and planning is attempting to both keep pace and lead the way. Accompanying the budget is the 5-year capital improvement plan. Of the $11 million for fiscal year 2020-2021, approximately $2.8 million is included for the F Street Bridge project and update to the transportation system plan. Another $7.1 million is for continued water and wastewater projects, including replacement of water mains. Phase 1 of the recycled water use effluent project, replacement of the Williams Street pump station, and a new water well in the Polk well field at the north end of the city. There's a lot going on in the capital improvement plan, so please take your time and look through it, and we'll help you with any questions you have about that. Our future budgetary challenges. The reality of recession caused by the pandemic is setting in, and the proposed budget has been adjusted using the information that is available. We are yet to know the full extent of the impact or how long it will take to recover. Staffing reductions are necessary during recessions, and if the recession is deep and prolonged, additional staffing reductions and expenditure changes are likely in the next fiscal year budget. Increases in labor costs related to the Public Employee Retirement System, PERS, with expected increase in fiscal year 2021-22. The city is currently setting aside monies and plans to continue to set aside monies in preparation for that increase. Health insurance is also a factor in increased labor costs that all sectors of the economy are facing. Tax revenues will increase as development projects finish, but there is a lag of a year or longer before the additional revenue is realized by the city, and that's in the form of property taxes. While utilities largely are self-sustaining with small annual rate increases, stormwater and transportation remain areas of fiscal concern for future fiscal years. Master plans underway or in the next fiscal year will guide the city in creating long-term financial plans to ensure these funds have sufficient operating and capital revenue. In summary, many people share in the responsibility of ensuring that the city's ability to provide high levels of service, undertake significant capital improvements in infrastructure, and achieve a strong financial position. Through the collective efforts of the City Council, residents, and staff, Independence has become a model community in the state of Oregon, where its efforts in technology and innovation and for our strategic economic recovery from the Great Recession. Thankfully, since the Great Recession, through conservative budgeting, the City of Independence has been preparing for the next recession, which was predicted by economists to begin sometime in the fall of 2020. It ended up happening sooner and has hit the national, state, and local economy hard. Flexibility will be key in working through the financial issues created by COVID-19. This budget respects the previous work and provides flexibility during these challenging times. Staff has performed professionally, creatively, and collaboratively in preparing this budget, and we thank them for their hard work. But the work is not done. We want to thank the City Council and the Budget Committee for their time and hard work ahead in reviewing this budget to ensure the priorities set forth in fiscal year 2020-21 reflect the objectives and priorities of the community. Sincerely and thank you, Tom Pessemer, City Manager, and Gloria Butch, Finance Director. But with that, I wanted to kind of highlight what adjustments we've made in this budget for the current year. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we have adjusted with what we know for this coming fiscal year. We know that state revenue is going to be declined, as particularly in the gas tax and the state shared revenues. We believe that there will be a slight increase, also caused by the pandemic in state liquor sales, which we get a return tax from that, and marijuana taxes. But those won't replace what we estimate to lose in the gas tax particularly. Other revenue effects, the other big item is our lodging tax. We had counted on that heavily for our economic development and in our tourism and events. The lodging tax helps support our downtown manager, and we'll continue. We will continue with that, but we've had to reduce that fund budget dramatically. Our staffing, we have laid off one person, and that was as of this morning when we gave notice. And so that will happen in this current year. The beginning of next year, we'll be shuffling another position to take duties and kind of reassign different things. We did in March and April, we were able to outsource our utility billing, printing, and mailing. And so now we have a company that's contracted to do that. The savings is, we will continue to do that even beyond this time because it is going to save us considerably, partly on labor costs. I will be able to reassign some of her extra hours to other projects. and other duties. The other savings is going to be in our folding machine, which is expensive and is prone to breakdowns, and also in our copy machine prices costs. It'll greatly reduce that. Along with the utility bills, this service company is also doing the monthly newsletter. So that's an added benefit. We have applied for a FEMA relief, and we are monitoring that. We are looking at some of our personnel costs in that. The cost of implementing our the data bar, which is the company that's doing our printing and mailing, the cost of implementing that will go towards that. And our increased use of our janitors to follow through and keep everything sanitized. Those are just kind of the highlights of things that we are monitoring and will be applying towards that grant. From there, I have some corrections in the document itself. So I'm going to be pointing out some certain pages. I don't know if you want to take notes. I want to start with page 2.21. Give everybody time to get there. This is our financial summary. And so we were putting the budget together right up until yesterday. And this particular document here, the financial summary, had some updates that didn't get made when we were making some other changes, particularly to our FTEs by department. The ending numbers for fiscal year 2020 for FTEs is 52.5. And the ending numbers for this next fiscal year 2021 of FTEs is 51.7.
So if I can just pause you there, because I don't think the columns at the top are labeled either. So
yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So
they're labeled on 2.19.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Gloria.
Yes. Also, the ending, there's 3 sections to this financial summary. The first part of it is on 2.19, and it says total resources. So it gives you the numbers across the years for total resources, and then it gives you the numbers across for total requirements. Okay, and those all balance. Those are all the same number. Then the other section is the breakout by departments and funds. And so that's what's called the organizational units or programs. At the bottom, that should, the total requirements should also be the same numbers as the first 2 sections. You will notice that for 2021, the number is off. It should be the same as the other two sections at 32,285,769. Where it was off was, I'll take you to that page. If you'll go to page 2.60. Everybody there? Okay. On 2.60, it shows an ending balance of 115,000. That is that's adding up incorrectly. There should be a 0 at the ending balance, and our total uses should be 371,231. What didn't sum in that was the reserve for the Public Works facility of 115,000. And that's what didn't carry over into that first part that I was talking about. So the last, pardon me?
Could you do that again? I missed one of the numbers. So the 115,000 should be a 0, is that correct?
Yes.
And what was the other number, please? And which column?
The total uses number should be $371,231.
And Mayor, that's the number right above the 115,000.
Thank you. That's
yes.
That was what I was. Thank you.
Yes. So the last item that I want to show you a correction on is section 4, page 4.41. This one, the city manager and I worked on this over and over and over again and got it to adding correctly and allocated correctly. And then in the end result was still a.
Oops.
Yes. So on the, under community development, the permit specialist, in the right-hand column, that should be 0. And so the total FTE for community development for this next fiscal year should be 1.1.
Can you restate the page number on that?
Yes, 4.4.
4.4, thank you. And could you restate what?
I will. I'll
again, please?
give you a chance to get there.
I went to the wrong page.
That's okay. Ready?
Please.
Okay. It's under community development. The permit specialist in the right-hand column should be 0. And so the total FTE for community development should be 1.1. The result at the total FTEs should be 51.7.
There's one other thing that I'll mention in this table that Gloria, I don't think mentioned, maybe she did, I missed it. We also removed from the Public Works department the summer assistants. Those were 0.6 last year, and that is a 0 this year. Those positions largely were supporting our events, and so we removed that from the budget as well.
That was it on my corrections. So I'm going to turn it back over to Tom Pessemer.
Great. So I wanted to, before I actually go on and talk about kind of how we're going to operate this budget, I think we have a couple of new members, and I don't think we had the opportunity to do our normal training. So Gloria, I'm sorry, I'm going off script here.
That's okay.
But I just want to make sure that Jessica and Aaron, you in particular, but maybe some others, kind of know how to read one of these documents. So do you guys have the document in front of you? I think it might be good to actually just kind of walk through this column by column to make sure you understand how the numbers work. It probably will save you a bunch of time. You'll, of course, figure it out yourself. But we have so many pages that are exactly the same. But I thought it might be helpful to actually kind of walk you through each one of the different columns on every one of these to do that. And Gloria, if you want to do that, you can do it, or I can do it either way. But I think it's helpful for especially the new members to know how to read the different budget documents. So,
okay.
So you can pick a particular one. If we want to do a difficult one, we could do page 2.54, which is our tourism and events fund. We're going to have to talk about that a lot anyway. So that's probably a good one because that is clearly the fund that we have made the most changes in.
What number was that?
2.54.
Okay, so as you go through the budget detail sheets, they're sectioned off into fund types. We're going to start with that. And so the Tourism and Events Fund, which is on 2.54, is a special revenue fund. And each of our funds are self-balancing. So this is a fairly easy one because it's all on one page. And we start out with the beginning fund balance. This has to match what the ending fund balance was the prior year. So if you start over in the column 1718, the ending fund balance in that column was 50,490. You'll see at the top of the column for 1819, the beginning fund balance is the same. So we start with the same fund balance as we ended with. It's sections for sources. And then the categories are, we budget by category, which is personnel services, materials and services, and capital outlay. And there's also debt service and transfers. So you'll see in fiscal year 19 and /20, we've got a column there that shows you a variance between our estimates and what our estimated year end is.
So let me pause you because the first column there in the fiscal year 1920 is the adopted budget. So you're looking there at the adopted budget, including any supplemental budget or changes that we've done. So that was actually what was adopted by the budget committee and council the previous year with the adjustments. The next column over is the 9-month actual. So that is currently where we were at the end of March. Yes. And then we have projected what we believe we will be at the end of the year in that estimated year end column. And the budget estimated year-end variance is comparing the adopted budget to the estimated year-end line. And you can see the difference there. So you don't have to go adding up a bunch of numbers yourself. You can just kind of see what the difference is right there.
Right. Yes. And so our proposed budget, you'll see in our proposed budget, what I was talking about earlier as far as our some of our assumptions and adjustments is to the lodging tax. We had originally budgeted for this current year 175,000. We really only estimate that we'll receive 30, and that's we may not even get that much. And then for next year, hopefully things turn around well enough that we'll we estimate 75,000 for next year. So as you go through that, that's really where we're talking about this fund in particular is going to have a lot of adjustments, Independence Days, and our summer series. Those activities are going to be greatly reduced.
And you'll see the next column over, the variance to fiscal year estimated year end. We've actually taken the estimated year end column for 1920 and subtracted the proposed a budget from that, and then that will give you the variance. So you can see, you don't have to add those numbers up. You can see where we expect to end up in each one of those categories this year compared to what we propose for next year budget. And again, that's just to make it simpler for you so you don't have to go through things. If you see a negative number in the sources, that means the amount's going up because that's a revenue stream. If you see a negative number in the expenditures, that means the number's going down because those are expenditure streams. So just keep that in mind as you're looking through those variances. All right, well, so I hope that was helpful. I don't want people to go through and have to try to learn how to read it. You would figure it out from just looking through the numbers, but that repeats itself over and over and over again. And we'll go into more detail about why the adjustments happen to each one of these different funds next time, and we'll also have the different managers kind of talk about their areas and kind of outline things for you, so you don't necessarily have to look too terribly closely, or as you look at it through it, you'll probably have questions, and we'll try to have them start so that they can answer those. I mentioned a while ago that as important as it is putting together the budget, managing and operating the budget is just as important. And probably especially in a time where we have so much uncertainty. So we're putting this budget together with our best guesses, but at the same time, we also recognize that we need to be somewhat conservative and we need to be prepared for conditions that change. So one of the things that that I want to just kind of be upfront with you guys about is I'm going to take some certain actions beginning July 1st in order to reserve capacity in this budget in case things change and in case things don't go exactly the way that we had anticipated. And our plan is to basically take this on a quarter by quarter basis. So we will take a look at this not only on a monthly basis, but really sit down and do a hard look at this budget every quarter to make sure that we're staying within side of what we have are planning to expend, but more importantly, also what our revenue streams are. We know that there's some potential liability there, and we want to be really careful. And so I'm going to start the year out with basically putting some stops on some certain things that are in this budget. For example, no building maintenance projects. We have a building maintenance fund in this budget. You'll see it. And we will not make any expenditures out of that fund until we're certain that our revenue streams are sufficient in order to do those things. There are certain things in there that are somewhat important, but at the same time, we also need to make sure that we are making sure that we're staying within inside of our budget. Same thing for capital purchases. We have a number of capital purchases that we do every year, including in some of our technology. We'll start out with not spending any money on those until we're certain that we are in a good position. I'm also going to stop any travel and training, partially because there's probably not going to be a whole lot in the first quarter, or if it's going to all be online. So we may take those opportunities. But at the same time, we need to make sure, while travel and training is important, that we aren't overexpending things. Obviously, I'll have to make some hard decisions there, but that's something that we are going to do. I'll likely put in place a hiring freeze. We need to make sure that our personnel costs don't escalate. That is something that many cities do during a recession. And kind of my way that I believe is appropriate to manage during a recession is to be very cautious. I've seen a number of cities who have taken the attitude that they can bridge a recession and they can basically get from one point to another. The problem is that you never know how deep it's going to be, and you never know how long it's going to go on. And cities that try to do that and don't try to do the proactive things up front, including the hard thing that we had to do of eliminating a position this year, really come back to haunt you in the future. Whereas if you take a proactive action and done one thing, especially during staff, you will find that the next year you're going to be doing multiples of that because you actually didn't take action quickly enough. So we are trying to be moving forward. Gloria mentioned in the budget message that we have programmed in the budget a COLA for unrepresented employees. So we are contractually bound to the unions to provide COLAs. We have not, we have taken that out of the budget for unrepresented employees. If things are not going well, I will not do the COLAs for the second half of the year. So I've told those employees that that is the case. So we've kind of split that in half, but if we are not in a healthy fiscal position, those COLAs won't happen even if they're budgeted. I think, you know, the reality is we need to talk about hard things, and sometimes budgets are hard, and this one is particularly hard. But the reality is, you know, there may be future layoffs. Personnel costs are high. Services are expected, but the reality is we have to create a balanced budget. And it's possible that there will be more layoffs this year, sometime during the year, if we get out of line, or next year, depending on how this recession goes forward. So I just want to make sure you know that up front that we are ready and we are prepared. Even though we put together the best budget document that we can to take additional actions and make sure that as we operate this budget, we are being respectful of the conditions around us. And, you know, obviously if this bounces back and there aren't issues, we can certainly, you know, expend the monies that are there. But I want you all to know that I think we're committed, not only myself, but our management team, to manage this budget in a way that is respectful of the conditions as they present themselves. So I guess with that, Gloria's going to talk about a few more things, but are there any questions? That was a lot of information from us. You can raise your hand if you got a question, and Miranda will acknowledge you. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Gloria, then.
Okay, so if there's no questions, we're going right now. I'm sure you will have as you review the document, and so we'll kind of wrap up now. We would really like you to, as you have questions, if you would email those to me. And it would be really helpful if we could have those by Monday, by the end of the day, Monday, by 5 o'clock on Monday. That way, that'll give us time to make sure that staff has time to answer those questions. We will compile everybody's questions and answer them, and we'll have those answers ready for you. We'll go through those questions and answers on our next meeting on Wednesday. Our next meeting is Wednesday at 6:30. And as I said, we've got subsequent meetings planned if we need them. Traditionally, we can usually get through this with the second meeting, but we certainly don't want to rush you all, and we want to make sure that your questions are all answered and that we've provided you with the information that you need to make an informed decision. With that, I thank you all, and I would turn it over to Miranda.
So Miranda, we can't hear you.
There you go. Try again.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I took my headphones off. So the next thing on this did you say that you wanted to do over the capital improvement plan tonight, or did you want to do that next week? I think earlier you said you wanted to.
What I meant was go through it closely, look at it closely, bring back any questions that you have about it. It really is, there's a lot of information in that capital improvement plan about what the planned capital projects are.
Okay.
It's a fairly
Yeah, it's a lengthy, yeah, I thought it was gonna take a while. Okay, so then we'll just get a motion to adjourn for the evening and to reconvene next Wednesday, the same time, right?
Yes.
6:30?
Yes.
So do I have a motion?
I will move to adjourn. This is Kathy.
Kathy, in a second?
Second.
Who was
Jennifer.
that? Jennifer, sorry.
Jennifer. Yep.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No, okay, motion carries. I think that's it for the evening. That was fun. That was my first budget Zoom meeting.